Let's talk about the first variable in a behavioral statement, target audience. And we're going to use my favorite example, Uber. This is not an endorsement of Uber. Travis is a rampant sexist, and I hope he loses all of his money. Take a Lyft instead. But Uber had a really good behavioral statement, and it's important that we recognize how good behavioral statements contribute to the success of companies like Uber. So when we talk about target audience, who is Uber for? Well, there's lots of potential answers here, but the real answer is kind of everyone, right? Uber is pretty much for everybody. If my 7-year-old could figure out how to order an Uber, I'm pretty sure they'd drive him wherever he wanted to go. If a chicken could use a phone, they'd drive him across the road. They'd be like, get in the back. They don't care, right? Really, Uber is pretty much for everyone. This is extraordinarily rare. Generally speaking, most products, most things that we build are for a specific audience. Now remember, this is a variable that is in the user's voice, so it should be a way that they self-identify. And one of the things I often look for is it's something where people can pass the nod test. What I mean by that is they shouldn't have to think too hard about whether they're in that audience. If I say, are you a bike rider? People will go, yeah, or nah, pretty quickly. Most people know very easily whether they're in the sort of bike riding audience. That's really important. We want that. This is not a place for us to say 20 to 30-year-old Latino women living in LA, because they'd never self-define that way, right? That isn't how they think of themselves in relation to any product or service. That might be how we define them in some very highly technical way, and there is a place to put that in the behavioral statement, but we want to be careful that we're really focusing on the user's understanding of themselves when we talk about target audience. If you're struggling to think about your target audience, I often ask people to think about, well, when you close your eyes and imagine someone using your product or service, who do you imagine? Who are those early adopters who are going to be your first people? It's okay if you're overly narrow. Remember, we can always broaden this later. A good narrow behavioral statement makes it easier for us to concentrate our force to create greater impact. For those of you that are more MBA-ish in stance, you might think of this as your service addressable market. These are the people who are likely to be willing to use your product based on their existing motivations today before you really change anything. So target audience is a place to think about in a holistic way who's generally likely to use my product or service.